Hey guys, welcome back to Simple Rush Builds. I know it's been a while. As you can see, my hair got a little longer, but I'm back and I want to show you guys how to make a mold. So today we're going to make a mold of this Batman helmet, and it'll probably be a multi-part video series, but let's get into it. Okay, first things first, let's talk about a few things that you're going to need to do it. Obviously, you're going to need whatever you're trying to make a mold of. In this case, it's this 3D printed Batman helmet that I've got. The next thing you're going to need is a bucket or some sort of container that you can put clay into. I have a heat lamp as well because my clay is actually a oil-based clay, so it's really kind of malleable once it gets hot. So the warmer it gets, the easier it is to work with. So you're going to need some sort of clay. You can use water-based. Personally, I just use the oil-based because it's reusable and it never really goes bad. Water-based clays, if you set them up for a long time, they'll dry out. You can't use them. So oil-based clay, some sort of clay sculpting tools. So they sell these in different types of tools, but you'll need something to work the clay. Just to kind of fill in the voids. So, and then the most important thing you're going to need to create the mold obviously is silicone. So for this, we're going to use Smooth-On's Umo 30. It's just a silicone rubber. You mix it, 1-to-1 ratio of the A and B parts. I buy the small trial versions of it. They're pretty expensive. They're like $30 for a container like this, and I bought 3 of these sets for this helmet, and I hope it's enough. I may have to have 4. I'm not sure yet, but it ought to go a good ways. So we'll see how far I get with it. You can buy this stuff in a larger container, but it is hella expensive. So like I said, these were $30. I bought 3, so I spent right around $100 for just the silicone. But that is the most important piece. So, so without delaying too much longer, let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so first things first. When we're making the mold, we want the mold to be as enclosed or as we can, or as rounded as we can, even around the voids in the mold. So this piece obviously has a huge opening where your mouth is, your eyes are, and your head slips into it. So what we want to do is create all of this as one big solid chunk, and that'll be done with the clay. So you could, I guess, fill in the whole helmet with clay, but that would be wasteful and it would probably just be a pain to get out. So what I normally do is I will take the piece and we're gonna cover it or wrap it with cardboard to kind of fill this void. And then once the cardboard's on it, then we'll use the clay to actually get in there and finesse it. So I've got some old pieces of cardboard here that I had, and I've got a stand. So this stand is important because the helmet's going to sit on this stand, and we're going to basically build a big chunk all the way around this thing. And so at the end of it, we'll pour silicone all around it. The idea is at the end, when you have your finished mold, you only want a small opening for you to pour the plastic into, so that you can slush cast it and not spill plastic all over the place. And the smaller the opening is, the better it is for that. So anyway, so what I'm going to do first is take this helmet and we're going to start trying to fill it in with some cardboard. So let me just lay down this so I don't scratch up my helmet, because it's nice and smooth right now and I don't want to mess it up. So I've got a hot glue gun going, it's heating up. We're going to use that to glue the cardboard in. So take the cardboard, grab a razor blade, okay, so I'm going to create a rectangular piece, as best I can, like this, and we're going to take this and we're kind of going to, I don't know, make it easier to work with here. So go. And we're going to lay it in here like that and glue it in. So as you can see, I'm filling this void with cardboard, and that's the goal. That's what we want to do. So not only around the back, we're going to fill in his front half too. So it would be something like this, and then we'll take the clay and fill that thing in. So this gives us a little bit something to play with, so or less clay we have to use. So anyways, I'm going to start working on this. We'll fast forward the video. Okay, so now we have the cardboard kind of filling in a lot of the void. So I still wanted to leave space to be able to get the stand into the helmet. So that's what I'm going to do now, put the helmet on the stand. So I wrapped the top of this pipe in a rag. That way it's not pushing plastic on plastic, and it kind of helps it from moving around. But I'm also going to add another rag just to give it a little bit more support. So get this piece of rag here. I'm just going to kind of fold it up, and then we're going to slip the helmet on it. All right. So once that's on there, make sure you pull off any of the hot glue strings that were hanging out anywhere. I don't see any. There's a few of them, but overall it's pretty good. Okay, so after this, as you can see, my bucket has the heat lamp on it. So we're going to let the clay kind of get a little soft, and then we're going to start filling in the different areas of the helmet and try to make this thing surrounded by clay. And then once we add a bunch of clay in the base and around the post here, it'll keep it, it won't wobble like this. It'll be pretty solid. So that's what we're going to do next. So I'm going to move the camera around so you can see better. Okay, so the first place that I want to start is at the base. So what I do usually, get you your clay, start making it, knead it, and just make it soft as you can. And then I'm going to start around the post. So I'm going to start wrapping the post in clay down here. And this is going to take a while to fill in, but you just want to wrap that post until you build it out enough to get to the edges of the helmet. Wrapping the post here is what's going to give you something for that clay to hold on to, because you want it to be solid on this post. You want the helmet to be. So keep putting clay on there. Okay guys, once you have the once you've got the clay all the way around it and you've filled in all these gaps, then you're ready to go ahead and store it. So as you can see, I've got it filled in all the way around, even on the bottom of it. And this is very important because you want to make sure that all the little voids are filled so that when you're actually doing the cast, it's just one solid block. So now that I've got most of the clay in, I'm going to go ahead and store this guy. And what you want to do is you want to store it in a cool place, because the cold temperatures will actually make the clay harden a little bit, and you want it to be stiff, because the next part of it is we're basically going to be shaving and cleaning up all the edges so that we've got nice clean edges to work with. And that's pretty much it, guys. All right guys, it's the next day. As you can see, I've got all the negative space filled in with clay. I actually put it in an air-conditioned room overnight. The cooler that the clay gets, the stiffer it gets. And at this point, we want it to be a little more stiff because we're actually going to be kind of shaving and cleaning up a lot of these edges. And so the stiffer the clay is, the better. If it's too soft, it'll end up kind of running on you and it just doesn't work as well. So keep it in a cool room overnight and then bring it back out to start doing the detail work. So that's what I'm going to show you now, is how to make the edges nice and clean, and then get all the smudges and stuff off from the clay that I've been handling with my hands. So, okay, so to do it, you're going to need some tools. I've got a kit here with a bunch of different clay working tools in it. Dump these guys out. A sponge is kind of handy to have. I like having a paintbrush too. This kind of helps like dust off some of the edges and clean off some of that loose clay. Let's see, what else are you gonna need? You will need some of these to shave off, like if you're trying to shave large amounts of clay off. And then obviously some of the more fine sculpting tools like this. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go around this edge, and everywhere where there's a sharp edge, we're gonna clean the clay out. Because you want the new plastic, when you do the mold, you want the new plastic to form a nice clean edge. Now when I cast this piece, it's all going to be one piece. So this back piece for the helmet is actually going to be part of one big plastic chunk. And then what will happen is after you cast it, you'll cut this out and separate them. So like I said, the first thing you want to do is kind of just run your tool down the edges here and clean off a lot of this excess clay that you don't necessarily need. And this part here takes a little time, so you can just take this clay, I normally ball it up and just stick it down somewhere. This is best to do in small steps, so don't take off too much at one time, because you may end up pulling too much off, and it's harder to put it back than it is to take off a little at a time. So I'm going to go around the whole helmet and do this and show you guys a little close-up what it looks like once it's done. All right, guys. So as you saw, we filled in all the void space with clay, and it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of time, but you want to make sure your edges are clean, and you want to make sure that you're going into the helmet in these grooves so that when you pour the plastic, it actually forms the whole piece, and then you'll just trim off all those rough edges when actually pull the cast out of the mold. So at this stage, you have to really think about how the mold, how the silicone rubber is supposed to come apart. So with this helmet, you know, you probably could do this in one solid silicone piece, but as I told you guys earlier, I want to bring that silicone down as low as I can to where it's only a small hole for me to pour the plastic in. Well, I'll never be able to stretch that hole over this whole helmet. So I'm going to split the silicone into two pieces, and these two pieces need to be able to line up and lock together. So now what you have to do is create that split where you want it to split, and I'm going to do that using clay. I'm going to build a wall where I want the helmet to split, and then with that wall I'll build the clay, then we do silicone on one side of the wall, get it up kind of thick, remove the clay, and then do the silicone on the other half of the helmet. So at this point, we'll go ahead and build that clay wall where the split will be. Okay guys, for mine, I think I'm going to split this thing right up the center. So by going straight up the center, I'm going to be going across a lot of just smooth space, which means that when my seam line where the silicone pieces are going to meet, there's going to be a small line of plastic that gets in between that silicone. I'll be able to shave that and sand that off pretty easily, being that it's on this large flat area. So I'm going to split it right down the middle. So I'll have two halves of silicone that will just come off like that. So the first thing I'll do, you can draw a line, pop a line on it, try to get it super straight, but to be honest, that's not really critical. So I'm just going to just free ball it and run a line of clay right up the center of his head. And this part is kind of unnerving because you've spent all this time getting this so nice and clean, and then you go back and just fill it in with big old blobs of clay, and you know, but this is just part of the process. So I like to warm the clay up first and get it as malleable as I can. And I'll just start up here. So I kind of take my fingers, let me turn this so you can see, take my fingers and push down against the helmet like that. Now that kind of makes it stick, and you'll do that all the way down it. So don't worry about this side that it's not straight, because what will happen is after you get the bead laid down, you just come through with a tool and you'll cut it really nice and clean all the way down. So right now I'm just trying to get the basic bead on his head on the helmet. You can make these as tall as you want. The last one that I did for the Loki helmet was actually pretty tall. The clay was actually probably a good inch and a quarter high. You don't have to go that high. I maybe shouldn't have done it that high, but it also creates a keystone for the mother mold when you do it, which, I mean, this is plenty of height for that to create a keystone. All right, guys, so now that I have the mohawk all the way up and down to the thinner part here, I'm gonna go ahead and do my registration keys. So the registration keys are basically the pieces of silicone that are going to lock into each other when the two halves meet. And in order to do that, you need to make some sort of keys on the mohawk. So what I do is I will take my little wire thing, this guy here, and I will basically just cut a channel in here in various areas, so, and cut out some of the material. And you want to zigzag it. Like that. So as you can imagine, once you put silicone in this, it'll have that pattern in the silicone, and then the other half will have the negative of this, and they will meet up, and it'll make sure that your two halves line up the right way. So you can also do like little dots if you want. So like just push this guy in there and twist it like that. It's critical for these two halves to line up perfectly, or else your cast will come out all wonky. And there are tons of different methods for doing this. This is just how I do it. All right, guys, that's it for today. I'm gonna do a separate video on the actual silicone part of it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you learned something. If you did, hit like, hit subscribe. I appreciate it. I'm gonna make videos as much as I possibly can. So have a good day and keep building.